So first off, I just want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today. We greatly appreciate you taking the time to learn more about Savant Power and how it can significantly impact our collective projects together. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dave Lombard, and I'm the market leader for AudioVisions in Orange County. AudioVisions just celebrated our 35th anniversary, and with offices in Irvine, Los Angeles, Palm Desert, and San Rafael, we are the largest custom integrator in California. My team and I have been integrating Savant Power solutions across many of our projects, and it's quickly becoming one of the fastest growing technologies in custom homes. That growth is driven largely by California's solar mandates and the state's increasingly unstable power grid. And to provide a deeper dive into the capabilities of the Savant Power system, we've invited Steve Soberman, as you see here. And Steve is with Savant, and he will provide a little bit more detail. And Steve, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Dave. Hey everybody, I'm so glad that you guys came. This is going to be a very informative event. So Savant has been in business since 2005, and our business was originally built as a controls platform. So we've become the operating system for the home. And in the last couple of years, we've kind of come to symbolize this idea that we're the controls platform from the curb or from the meter all the way to the curtain. So Savant has the ability to control everything in your home, whether it's entertainment or it's climate or security. And now what we're doing is, on top of all of the traditional verticals that control platforms have been a part of, we've added energy to that. So I'm going to take you through what energy looks like in a Savant home and how it compares, to some of the other solutions that are out there in the market. So let's jump into what a Savant energy storage system looks like. So in the energy mindset, what we tend to see is we see three types of clients now that we're about 3 or 4 years into this. We see people who are looking for energy efficiency. They're adding solar and other renewables to their homes, and they're trying to reduce their consumption costs. They are thinking about energy from a strategic standpoint. Like when we look in California, you've got grid outages and brownouts and things like that. And these are people they're looking for efficiency and they're looking not to be disrupted. We have our energy security persona, somebody who's just very concerned about where the grid is not going, so to speak. And so they're building multiple strategies for energy sources. They're looking at solar, battery backup. They're talking to us about generator flexibility, which is something that we can integrate. And what they want to do is they want to isolate their homes from what we call dirty power. In places like California, we see a lot of brownouts and rolling blackouts. Brownouts traditionally are what cause the most amount of damage to appliances and things throughout the home. And so we have a lot of clients who are sort of exhausted by that, and they're looking for that stability and that security in their home. Interestingly, about 14% of homes today in America have generators, so it's kind of cool that our hybrid inverter is designed where not only can it tie to the grid and tie to solar and a battery, but we also have inputs for generators, so we can manage a lot of different energy sources. And our third persona is the sustainability. This is the person that really just wants to lower their footprint. They want to be as green as possible. They want to do time of use arbitrage. They're thinking about, how can I avoid surges in pricing from 4 to 10 or from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. With these homes, we're seeing, roughly 30% of U.S. solar installs now are starting to get battery. We're seeing this especially in California because the latest changes in how the local utilities buy power back from customers. Without battery, it almost makes no sense to have solar on your roof from a financial standpoint. But because of the cost of power in California, oftentimes having a strategy of solar in conjunction with battery can be less expensive than what people currently pay on a month-to-month basis for their electricity bill. The other thing that's awesome about this category is almost everything that we touch is entitled to a 30% tax credit. And the tax credit isn't limited to how much you spend, nor is it limited to how much you earn. So this tax credit becomes a huge incentive for homeowners in any income bracket and any spend bracket. So batteries, rooftop solar, our load management, which we'll talk about, EV charges, all of that qualifies for a 30% tax credit. Electrical panels, just the panel itself, it qualifies for a tax credit. Wiring, engineering, everything that goes into the system qualifies for a tax credit. So it's interesting because in the 35 years, Dave, I've been in this business, there's nothing I've sold that has ever come with a tax credit before this whole energy initiative. So this is something that passes on to the homeowner and gives them further incentives to go ahead and add this modern electrification to their home. So really the genesis for why we got into this, the owner founder of our company started dabbling in solar in his own home and quickly realized, okay, if I go too far down the rabbit hole on this, I'm going to wind up with an app for my solar, an app for my inverter, and potentially an app for my battery and an app for my car charger. And it was antithetical to who he is and who Savant is, but he was starting to think about that from a customer point of view. And one of the things that AudioVision customers are attracted to is this idea that all of my services in my home will be unified in a single app approach. So we built an extraordinary power application that folds right into the Savant app and gives your homeowners a tremendous amount of insight into everything that's going on in their home. But this same app is what ties into their entertainment and their lighting and their security and their climate and everything else that they're doing in the home. I'll walk you through a demo where we dive a little bit deeper into this so you can see what Savant Power System looks like in real time. I had pulled out some of the screenshots that appeal most to me. One of the things I like in my own home is being able to see how much is my home consuming right now in the moment. But more interestingly to me is who is consuming the most. And typically it's my AV rack. But I get to see is it's the pool, is it HVAC, is the AV rack, but I'm seeing that in real time. And that helps me make decisions in times when we go off grid because I build a number of different off grid scenes. And in those scenes, I can choose which devices are going to receive power, which loads are going to receive power, and which ones are not. I also like the insights of like seeing where my power is coming from for the house. And so there's a really cool historical view you can look at where it shows when you're on solar versus when you're on battery, when you're on grid, or when you're on generator. So you get a really good look at like how your home consumes power at different times of the day. And that really helps to inform you, and it helps to inform Dave and his team as they program the system so they can optimize the system for its greatest efficiency. One of the really cool things that we're about to release is something we call Smart Budget. In a lot of parts of California, we're starting to run into situations where clients are buying an existing property and they're planning on tearing it down or adding on to it. And they're going to the local AHJ and asking, or they're going to the local utility and they're asking for service upgrade. They want to go from 200 amps to 400 amps, or maybe they want to go from 200 amps to 1200 amps. And what we're starting to see is a lot of pushback where local utility and local municipalities are saying no, or they're setting a limit on how much power you can upgrade to. This smart budget feature that we're about to release inside of the Savant Power System, it'll allow you to build out a load management system for a home that gives that home the opportunity to have all the devices that a homeowner may want to have. But what this will do is it will help you manage and restrict what devices are getting power and what devices are not getting power. So it gives us the ability to do what's called a service upgrade avoidance. So maybe you only get 400 amps of power from the utility, but your load schedule is calling for 800. We have a way to work with a local utility for you to get around that. So when these devices are on, those devices have to be off. So this is a really cool feature that you're going to see from us shortly. And this would just be simply a software upgrade to all existing systems. So again, unification, we're going to take everything and we're going to tie it in under one beautiful, elegant app. So historically, what we've done is we've done climate, we've done pool integrations, we can manage some appliances now, entertainment, cameras, networking, security, voice, all of this stuff ties in. Now what we're doing is we're taking that and we're bringing smart energy into that. And what's really cool about this is because we have so much history in climate and lighting and shades, and because we have all of these strategic partnerships that we're building with appliance manufacturers, now what we can do is we can start to take all of those things that we've been controlling for years, we can start to pull those into an active management system, and we can think about how best to manage those devices. So we see a lot of clients that live, Dave, in your area where maybe from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 3:30, they're going to put their air conditioning in sort of a maximum overdrive where they get when power is its least expensive, we're going to cool that house down. But as soon as we get into that time of use at 4 p.m., we're either going to throttle back or throttle down altogether.
Absolutely.
So what we can do now is we can start to schedule climate around your power solutions as well. Same with lighting. With lighting, we'll look for ways to manage your lighting so that it's most efficient, most cost effective. Shades and blinds. This one's personal to me. In my own home, what I like to do in the wintertime is I like to take advantage of solar gain. So in my house, we have a western wall that's its windows almost floor to ceiling. In the wintertime, that living room and kitchen area, it can get up to as high as 78 degrees. So I'll keep the shades open, but from October 15th until May 1st, what the Savant system can do is it can trigger events. So when that room starts to get above 70 degrees, the Savant system can trigger a fan at the very top of my stairwell to redistribute all of that passive solar gain. But once we get past May 1st, I invert that. And so as soon as that room gets above 69 degrees between sunrise and sunset, it lowers my shades so that I'm not getting that passive solar gain, which again helps to further reduce my electricity costs because I'm not having to overdrive my air conditioning system to try and cool down a room that's fighting with all that passive solar gain. So you can start to see how, like, Savant being in the power game, being in the inverter, battery, and intelligent load management, coupled with all of these traditional things that we've always controlled, you can start to see how those all coordinate and start to synergize. So the anatomy of a whole home system. We start with the unified management app, which we've talked a lot about. The next thing that you have is you have your hybrid inverters. At the top of this cabinet you see here is our inverter that's sitting on top of a battery. And we'll take this apart a little bit more as we get into this webinar. This inverter has the ability to manage my main utility power that's coming in. So my utility service, my solar can connect to this over AC or DC. And if need be, we can also integrate a generator into this. From there, we go to our smart panel. So if you think about the traditional panel, it's had simple breakers that really don't have any intelligence. What we do is we add our smart companion modules in conjunction with the traditional breaker. And that allows us to select when those devices or when those loads are on or off, and it lets us measure how much power they're consuming. We also have a level 2 charger. The charger, as it integrates into Savant, it can tell us what the state of charge of a car is and how that's interacting with our services. In the not too distant future, we'll have another charger that will actually be able to pull electricity from EVs, from participating car manufacturers. I know that Ford, Volvo, Polestar are companies that are going to open up APIs so that we could use those as reserve storage systems as well in the future. And again, we can tie in our grid and our generator. So everything starts with the smart panel. So we see an extraordinary number of homes that are not ready to commit to solar or batteries or inverters or generators. But what they do want to do is they want to get some insight into how their house is consuming power. And what they also want to do is they want to be able to shed loads when they're not at their home. So if you think about a lot of your clients have multiple homes, traditionally what we see in some of the bigger homes, like homes in Aspen and Vale and some of the beach houses, we see houses that are drawing at idle 8 to 12 kilowatts per hour, whether the person is in the home or they're not. What's nice about having a smart load management system is we can start to shed unnecessary things when people aren't in the home. And we can take a house that may consume 8 or 10 kilowatts, and we can take that down to 2, maybe 3 kilowatts, and we can save that person thousands of dollars over the year when they're not in that home. So with the smart, why a smart panel? So we know what each load is consuming. What's nice about our solution is there's no proprietary panel. Our smart companion modules fit in any standard breaker panel. It's modular, so we can do things like just monitoring critical loads, or we can monitor the whole home. It's also easy to distribute. We see a lot of homes where there's a main service panel, and then we see lots of smaller sub-panels throughout the home. Our system is very flexible and allows you to expand in all of those different locations. And again, you get rebates on this, or your client gets rebates on this. Typically what we see is around $2,800 in companion modules plus labor for somebody to do a full 200 amp panel. So it's not outside of the realm of reasonability. So some of the benefits, we're able to restrict circuits on demand. So if we go off grid, there's an event where we go off grid, we've got only a certain amount of battery storage and the pool pump and the pool heater are running. It's easy for us to make that decision. Okay, the pool pump and the pool heater can go overboard until either the sun comes up the next day or electricity is restored to the grid. Um, there's this peace of mind when people are on vacation and they're in second homes. We know what should be on it, what shouldn't be, what should and shouldn't be on at different times of the year. We see this a lot in, say, mountain towns. I do a lot of work in places like Vail and Aspen and Park City. When we talk about peace of mind in markets like that, clients are thinking about heat tape in particular, right? They don't want to get an ice dam that does damage to their roof, or they've got other critical loads that must be on when it's 20 below zero outside. So in homes like that, we can build intelligent power schedules that think about the home from a seasonality standpoint. What a home in the mountains needs in February is very different from what a home needs in July. And we see this down by the ocean as well. We see people thinking about how they're going to build their critical loads around the different seasons and different weather events. And this gives us the ability to do that. The prices on these are very reasonable. If you look here, a dual 20 amp, very reasonable. This dual 20 amp, this will handle two 15 or 20 amp loads. Then we have 30 amp solutions and we have 60 amp solutions as well. So you can see, I'm sorry, you can see the prices right here. And again, these companion modules, they fit in every standard breaker panel. So we're not asking your electrician to change habits or look at a different type of panel that they're accustomed to installing. Our companion modules install the same way that they've installed breakers for their entire career. So the power system, when you look at it here, we start with a 100 amp inverter. So for every 100 amps in the home, we'll add an inverter. So the top piece you see here is our inverter. If we had a 400 amp home, which I'll take you through a single line diagram on, if we had a 400 amp home, we would have 4 inverters, and we'll show you how we distribute that throughout the power system. There's great scalability to this. With our system, we can scale out to 800 amps. This is an area where we really distinguish ourselves from our competitors. When we look at something like Tesla, which is an absolutely spectacular product, the product is really built for 200 amp homes. For every 200 amps you have in a home, a Tesla homeowner winds up with a new home in the app. So if you think about like an 800 amp home, and if that was fully backed up on, say, something like a Tesla system, you'd have 4 Tesla gateways. From a homeowner standpoint, they'd have 4 individual homes, each of those homes islanded inside of the app. So if the first 200 amps of backup runs out of power from the other 3 200 amp solutions, there's no way for us to redistribute power over to that side. What's brilliant about Savant is we take up to 800 amps and we flatten that as one single unified solution. So we can manage that whole home, from the panel, from the batteries, from everything, as one single solution. And the homeowner can move power around at will as they need to. Underneath this, what you're looking at is our 20 kilowatt battery storage system. This is a really innovative package because the depth of it is only about 12 inches. When we first set out to design this, when we were thinking about the inverter and the battery, we really thought about, okay, where's the most common place we're going to see these installed? It's likely going to be the garage. And so what we did is we designed this to be shallow enough to go right up against the wall where people can still drive in and drive out without any disruption. So let's talk about whole home energy backup versus partial. So here's a good example of what a partial backup system would look like. We'll have power coming in from our main utility. Everything is hunky-dory. We're sending power down to our main load center. And then from our main load center, we're going out from our inverter to what we call our critical load backup. And everything is fine. We're getting solar here. We're getting energy from the utility. And then when we get into an off-grid situation, we lose power permanently to that section of the house that's not part of the critical load. Not until solar is restored, or rather, not until the utility is restored, will that portion of the home come back on. And as the battery continues to drain, the client's going to have to make some decisions here in terms of, what do we do when we get into a low battery situation, when the battery gets down to 20 or 30%. You can see this illustration where we take more loads out of the system so we can extend the life of things like the refrigerator, the network, the security system. One of the limitations to these partial backups is oftentimes when the partial backup is built, the partial backup doesn't have enough voltage throughput to start up some of these bigger devices like pool pumps or pool heaters or some of these commercial HVAC systems that we see getting installed into homes. So while a partial backup system may look good on paper because of the cost effectiveness, it may not deliver what the client is looking for or what the client expectation is. So one of the things we like to do at Savant is we like to work closely with guys like Dave at AudioVisions, and we meet with the builder, we meet with the architect, we meet with the homeowner, and we try and get a good definition from everyone. What is the client expectation? So we can design a system around those expectations. This is sort of the anatomy of what one of our systems would look like when we're doing a 400 amp system, and we'll walk you through what the whole process looks like from a single line diagram. So we start with a meter, right? This is our 400 amps that's coming in from the utility. And from there, we're going to pass down through a transfer switch. We like to have a transfer switch that separates where we're able to separate the Savant Power system from the main utility in times when we want to do upgrades or improvements and things like that. This is a great feature that we draw into our single line diagram. So here you see the 400 amps that's coming through. It's going through our transfer switch. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that 400 amp and bring that into a load combiner. And that is going to take the 400 amps and divide it evenly into 4 100 amp circuits so that I can feed all of my inverters evenly with the power that's coming from the utility. If we've got solar or we've got a generator upstream, we'll also take those and we'll distribute those evenly, and we'll feed that into the inverters so that we can evenly charge all of our batteries and evenly redistribute the power. And then as we go out of the inverters, we're going to recombine all of that power into another combiner panel, and that's going to take us up and let us go to our main distribution panel. And then our power goes out to our main load centers, which are managed by Savant Smart Companion Modules, and everyone lives happily ever after.
So every load becomes a critical load, Steve?
Every load becomes a critical load. So in the old days, if you wanted a critical load panel, you had an electrician come out and wire something that was dead set. And if you didn't like it, you paid him to come out and wire a new critical load. With Savant, the critical load is now software based. So the critical load can be any combination of smart companions that you want it to be or what you don't want it to be. Now, the other thing I love about our system is the flexibility from an installation standpoint. These are two projects in Massachusetts. The house on the left is Bob, the owner of our company's house. He's got tall ceilings, a big basement. It's easy to do the installation the way we would do a textbook. You can see the inverters are stacked on top of the batteries. We had gutters added retroactively so that we can run all the wiring. And to the right, you're looking at one of my sales colleagues. He also lives in Massachusetts. He's got one of these older historic homes where they don't have traditional basements, they have cellars. And the cellar just isn't tall enough for him to be able to stack the inverters on top of the batteries. We have the batteries in one room of his cellar, and we have the inverters and all the distribution panels in another location. The great thing about the Savant Power system is the voltage between the inverters and batteries is so high that it only requires a very small light gauge. We can actually go about 100 feet away between the inverter and the battery. So it gives us a lot of flexibility where we put all the different devices. Other thing I love about our system is it measures and pays attention constantly to the power that's coming into the home. So we're always looking at current, voltage, and frequency. Current dropping, frequency changing from 60 hertz. These are the things that do the damage to all the appliances in the home. So what we do is we measure the system in real time. Anytime we see current, voltage, or frequency that's outside of the specification or the norm for what a house should be receiving, we take the house off grid. And then we continue to monitor the grid until the grid is stable again. And once the grid has been stable for a period of time, we then let the grid back into the house. So there's this proactive nature to our system that is designed to protect a homeowner's investment.
Be real quick on that. I know you've told me in the past about up in Northern California, where you had clients having tons of times a day going off grid, and you're able to take the history to the utility up there. And I just wanted to see if you could touch on that a little bit for everyone.
Yeah, we just outside of the Bay Area on the backside of the Oakland Hills, we had an integrator that installed 3 or 4 power systems in like a 6-month period. And there was a time where all of a sudden we were seeing 18, 20 times a day, all these homes were going off grid. The integrator, somebody like you, Sean called us and he's like, "Hey, I'm not sure what's going on here. I don't know if there's been a firmware update or something, but all of these homes seem to be all going off grid at rapid times of the day, and it's outside of the norm. What do you think's going on here?" I said, "Look, I don't know, and I don't like to guess. Let's start a support case, and then let's get a log report out of the Savant Power systems. Let's look at what the software is telling us." And lo and behold, what we saw between all of these homes is every one of these homes was going off grid because current was dropping down to a threshold that was too low. We were able to go back to the local utility with all the documentation and say, "Hey, we're seeing these aberrative events in this particular town. What can we do about it?" And PG&E up in Northern California was able to come in and fix whatever the problem was. So the houses were protected, and we were able to reach across it because we have to work with all the utility companies in general. It was nice to be able to reach out to them and provide them with the documentation that helped them solve their problems. Real quick, I want to jump into a live demo for you. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my phone here and pull up the app. We have a project in Las Vegas that we did with the builder, and this is a really cool project to show off. This is a 600 amp home. So we're going to see a pretty dynamic power system here in real time. Dave, you can see my phone?
Yep.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Okay, so it is pretty late in the morning there in Las Vegas. They're going to probably be bringing down a lot of power. Okay, so right now they're bringing down 6.7 kilowatts. There's probably a cloud over this building. We get as high as 19 kilowatts per hour. So what you're seeing in real time is you're seeing what is the solar producing? What's the state of charge on the battery? So we see that the battery is at 100% state of charge. And we see just a little bit of power coming from the utility. There's always going to be a little bit of back and forth between us and them. There just needs to be a constant state of connection. Next thing I like to look at, I always jump right into here. I want to know what's going on in the house, who's consuming what. So I can see the big consumer, no surprise, we're in Las Vegas. The big consumer of the morning is the HVAC system. And we go from 4.5 kilowatts down to 72 watts for the refrigerator. The refrigerator always surprises everybody, Dave, because everybody assumes refrigerators are high consumers. It turns out that they're high consumers when they're trying to get cold, but once they're cold, they tend to not draw a lot of power. And I can see what else is happening in here. So I can see other devices are just off and not consuming any power. I can also go down here in the app and I can see like, well, how have we been using power over the time of the day or the month or the year. And if I don't like the way the app is laid out, I can grab things, I can hold them, and I can move them around and put them where I want in my tiles. So I really like this ability to personalize and create a hierarchy for what I want to see. So this is really laid out the way I like it right now. This is a builder we worked with, and I kind of laid out a system. I like to see in real time first, how are we consuming? Where's power coming from, and where is it going? What does my consumption look like over the last day or 72 hours? Here I can see if I jump in, I can change this to 72 hours. And I can see like when were we on battery, were we ever on generator, which it doesn't look like we were. When are we on grid? We're barely touching the grid in this house. Right now it allows me to see up to 3 devices in this window. If I wanted to, I could remove the generator and I can add solar. Okay, I'll play with that a little bit later. But this allows me to do some personalizations as I wish. Also, again, what I'm doing here is I'm tying it into the entire home. So you can see in this home, and I don't know if anybody's home right now, but I have the ability to open and close garage. I can look at cameras. We've got lighting control. We've got entertainment. We've got security. Everything is built into this house. And if I own multiple homes, which often your customers do, I can simply switch homes and I can see my next home and I can look at what's happening in terms of power in that home. So this is my colleague in Boston. This is the house where we had to split the batteries and inverters because of the cellar. And I can see what's going on in his house. This house consumes pretty lightly. It's only a kilowatt, but he's creating 6 kilowatts of solar. And we can see that the battery is getting charged back up. and we're selling a little bit back to the grid. And once we have the battery fully charged, we'll sell a ton back to the grid. So really cool how we can jump from home to home, and we can see how everything is unified in one app.
Great.
Jumping back into our keynote real quick, and then I'll wrap it up. What does it look like as we move on down the process of getting this specified through permitting and into the installation phase? So this is just a general rule of thumb in California. In utility closets, storage, et cetera, inside of the home, you're allowed to store up to 40 kilowatts in a location. Garages, you can have 80 kilowatts. Exterior walls, you can have 80 kilowatts. Outdoor installations, like a separate shed, you can have 80 kilowatts. This is what's generally easy to get approved. Oftentimes with bigger projects we're working on, clients want significantly more than 80 or 160 kilowatts. We've got some projects where people are specifying up to 300 or 500 kilowatt hours of storage and batteries. It doesn't fall into the norm in California, but what we found is if we work with the local AHJ and the fire marshal, typically we can come up with some engineered solution that they're willing to approve. And so we take a very hand-in-glove approach on these bigger projects from a Savant point of view, where we work closely with the builder, the architect, and obviously AudioVisions, so we can meet with the fire marshals, the local AHG, and come to a solution that gets the customer what they're looking for. So what does the progression look like as we stand this up? Once we have a good idea of what the client wants to do, what we're going to be putting in the home, we put AudioVisions in touch with two companies, Planet PlanSet and Vector Engineering, and we get single line diagram drawings that have a PE stamp that we know will make sense to anybody in the state of California from an approval standpoint. We build all the site documentation for this as well. This is something that all the local AHJs and fire marshals want to see. We make sure that everything is properly denoted in terms of its warnings and things like that. And then, oops, sorry. And then we work with you as you go through the whole application process. Once your application has been approved and you're getting ready to do your installation, the next phase of that is we work with the builder, the architect, AudioVisions, and we introduce you to a company called Your Solar Mate. They work directly with your local utility to get your permission to interconnect. So that's going to be your permission to interconnect both solar and the battery and get the system online. So we provide a lot of service to the builder, to the architect, to AudioVisions to make sure that this is going to be a very successful installation. If you want to learn more about Savant Power, Dave Lombard is your man. He is our champion at AudioVisions in this category, and you can either give him a call or send him an email. Well, Dave, thanks for setting this up. I hope
yes, everyone, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And all right, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.